A desperate choice, the rain pounded against the windows of the small apartment like angry fists demanding entry. Celeste Rivera sat cross-legged on the worn carpet, surrounded by unopened bills and medical statements that seemed to multiply each day like a plague she could not escape. Her hands trembled as she held the latest hospital invoice. The number at the bottom made her stomach turn. $80,000. Her brother Thomas needed another surgery, and the insurance company had denied the claim for the third time. She pressed her palms against her eyes, fighting back tears that would solve nothing. At 23, she had thought her art degree would lead somewhere meaningful. Instead, she spent her days working double shifts at a coffee shop while her paintings gathered dust in the corner. Her dreams felt like luxuries she could no longer afford. Thomas was only 19, a college freshman before the illness struck. He deserved better than a sister who could not save him. The email notification chimed on her laptop, breaking through her spiral of despair. She almost ignored it, expecting another rejection from the galleries she had contacted. But the subject line caught her attention. Private commission, urgent, generous compensation. Celeste clicked it open, her heart racing as she read. A collector named Draven Ashford needed someone to restore a series of damaged oil paintings in his private estate. The job would take approximately 3 months. Room and board included. Payment, $100,000 upon completion. Her breath caught. It seemed impossible. Too good to be real. But desperation made people believe in miracles, and she needed one desperately. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, composing a response before doubt could stop her. She attached her portfolio and hit send before she could reconsider. The reply came within an hour. Contract attached. Car will arrive tomorrow at dawn. Come prepared to stay. Draven Ashford. No interview. No negotiation. Just an offer that could change everything. The mansion beyond the world. The black car arrived exactly at sunrise, sleek and silent like a shadow given form. The driver, an older man with silver hair and an expression carved from stone, said nothing as he loaded her single suitcase. Celeste climbed into the back seat, her stomach knotted with anxiety and hope in equal measure. They drove for hours, leaving the city behind and climbing into mountains she had never seen. The road narrowed, winding through forests so dense the sunlight barely penetrated. Finally, they emerged at the edge of a cliff, where a mansion stood like something from a Gothic fairy tale. Dark stone walls rose 3 stories high, crowned with towers that pierced the gray sky. Ivy crawled up the sides, and gargoyles perched along the roof edges, her stone eyes seeming to follow her. The driver opened her door without a word and gestured toward the entrance. Celeste stepped out, her shoes crunching on the gravel drive. The air felt different here, heavy with something she could not name. Magic, perhaps, or simply isolation. The massive oak doors opened before she could knock. A woman stood in the doorway, elegant and cold, in a black dress that matched the mansion's stones. Her silver hair was pulled back severely, and her blue eyes held no warmth. "I am Victoria Ashford. My nephew is expecting you in the gallery." Her voice was crisp, each word measured like currency. "Follow me." Celeste trailed behind her through hallways lined with portraits of severe-looking people whose eyes seemed to judge her inadequacy. Crystal chandeliers hung overhead, their light dim despite the dozens of bulbs. The mansion felt like a tomb dressed up as a home. Victoria stopped before a set of double doors. "The paintings are inside. You will work alone." Draven does not appreciate interruptions. She turned and walked away, her heels clicking against the marble floor like a countdown. Celeste pushed open the doors and stepped into a gallery that stole her breath. The room was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows along one wall that overlooked the forest below. But it was the paintings that commanded attention. Dozens of them lined the walls, each one depicting dragons in various forms, soaring through storm clouds, curled around mountains, breathing fire across battlefields. "They're my family's history." She spun around. A man stood in the shadows near the far wall, so still she had not noticed him. He stepped forward. Celeste's breath caught for an entirely different reason. Draven Ashford was beautiful in a way that felt dangerous. He stood well over 6 feet tall, his broad shoulders filling out a simple black shirt. His hair was dark as midnight, falling just past his collar. But it was his eyes that held her frozen, golden, luminous, and utterly inhuman. They glowed faintly in the dim light, like embers waiting to ignite. "You are staring," he said, his voice deep and rough, as though he rarely used it. "I apologize." Celeste forced herself to look away, heat rising in her cheeks. "The paintings are remarkable. I have never seen anything like them." He moved closer, his footsteps silent despite his size. "They are not paintings, Miss Rivera. They are memories. Captured moments of what my bloodline once was before the curse bound us to human form." She blinked, uncertain if he was speaking metaphorically or if exhaustion had finally broken her mind. "I do not understand." Draven stopped a few feet away, studying her with those impossible eyes. "You will. The paintings are deteriorating because the magic that preserved them is failing. I need someone with your talent to restore them before the memories fade completely." "Magic is not real," Celeste said, though her voice wavered. His lips curved into something that was not quite a smile. "You are standing in my home, accepting money you desperately need, and you choose now to question reality." He turned toward the largest painting, which showed a massive black dragon with golden eyes identical to his own. 300 years ago, my ancestor angered a witch. She cursed our family. We can take our true forms only under specific conditions, and we can never love freely without destroying the one we care for. Celeste's rational mind screamed that this was madness, that she should run. But something deeper, something instinctive, recognized truth in his words. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know what you have walked into." Draven turned back to her. She saw something raw in his expression. Loneliness, the kind that carved holes in a person's soul. "My Aunt Victoria arranged for you to be here? She believes that if I am isolated long enough, I will agree to her plans for a strategic marriage that will benefit the family fortune. She sees you as a distraction, nothing more." Anger flared in Celeste's chest. "I am not anyone's pawn, I know." His gaze held hers. "That is why I am giving you a choice. You can leave now, and I will still pay you $10,000 for your time. Or you can stay, restore the paintings, and help me find a way to break this curse. The work is real. The money is real. But the danger is also real." Celeste thought of Thomas in his hospital bed, of the bills crushing her family, of the life she had been forced to abandon. She thought of this strange, lonely man trapped in a curse he did not ask for. And she thought of herself, trapped in circumstances equally beyond her control. "I will stay," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "But not because your aunt manipulated me here. I stay because I choose to. And I will help you break your curse. Not because you are paying me, but because no one should be forced to live without the freedom to love." Something shifted in Draven's golden eyes. For the first time since she arrived, she saw hope flicker there like a candle lit in the dark. "Then we have much work to do," he said quietly. "The paintings will teach you about my world. And perhaps, together, we will find a way to rewrite the ending of this story." Celeste nodded, stepping closer to the first painting. She did not know what she had truly agreed to, but she knew with absolute certainty that her life would never be the same. The curse had been waiting for someone, brave enough to challenge it, and she had just volunteered. Secrets in the paint, the first week passed in a blur of turpentine and careful brushstrokes. Celeste worked from dawn until her eyes burned, restoring the paintings one layer at a time. Each canvas revealed more of Draven's world, dragons dancing in moonlight, ancient battles fought in skies crackling with lightning, tender moments between creatures whose power could level cities, yet chose gentleness instead. Draven visited the gallery each evening, watching her work in silence. At first, his presence unnerved her, those golden eyes tracking every movement of her hands. But gradually the silence became comfortable, almost companionable. He would sit in the leather chair by the window, reading leather-bound books while she painted, and sometimes he would speak. He told her about his childhood, about learning to control the fire that lived beneath his skin. He described the first time he had transformed fully, the terror and exhilaration of wings spreading wide, of seeing the world from heights humans could never reach. He explained how the curse worked. He could shift into his dragon form only during the full moon, and only when completely alone. Any attempt to transform in the presence of someone he cared for would result in their death. The witch wanted us to suffer isolation, Draven said one evening, his voice heavy with centuries of inherited pain. She ensured that the more we love, the more dangerous we become. My father watched my mother die because he forgot himself one evening. The transformation happened before he could stop it, and the magic consumed her. He never forgave himself. He walked into the ocean 5 years later and never returned. Celeste set down her brush, her heart aching for the boy he must have been. How old were you? 16. Stared out the window at the darkening forest. Victoria took control of everything after that. She raised me with rules and restrictions, convinced that emotion was weakness. She arranged marriages for my cousins, treating love like a business transaction. When I refused to follow her path, she became creative in her manipulations. Is that why she brought me here? Celeste asked, though she already knew the answer. Draven's jaw tightened. She thinks that if she dangles someone desperate enough in front of me, someone I might care for, I will eventually agree to her terms to keep you safe. She will offer to help your brother, to clear your debts completely, but only if I marry the woman she has chosen. A distant relative with the right bloodline and no emotional attachment. Rage burned through Celeste's veins. I will not be used as leverage against you. I know. Draven turned to look at her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. That is why I am telling you everything. You deserve the truth, not manipulation. She stood, crossing the gallery until she stood before him. He remained seated, which put them nearly at eye level. Up close, she could see the faint shimmer of scales along his neck, barely visible unless the light caught them just right. Then let me help you, she said firmly. There must be a way to break the curse. Witches can be reasoned with, bargains can be renegotiated. The witch is dead. She has been for 200 years. Then we find another witch. We research the magic. We do something other than accept this fate. Celeste's hands clenched into fists. I spent my whole life watching my family suffer because we did not have enough money, enough power, enough luck. I am done accepting that some people are just meant to be crushed by circumstances. If there is any chance, any possibility of freedom, we take it. Draven stood slowly, his height forcing her to tilt her head back. You are extraordinary, he said softly. Do you know that? Heat flooded her cheeks, but she held his gaze. I am just stubborn. No. His hand lifted, hovering near her face but not quite touching. You are brave. Genuinely. Impossibly brave. The air between them felt charged, electric. Celeste's heart hammered against her ribs. She knew she should step back, should maintain professional distance. But her body refused to move. The gallery door slammed open. Victoria swept inside, her expression carved from ice. How touching. The artist and the beast playing at romance, her cold gaze fixed on Celeste. Tell me, Miss Rivera, how is your brother? I understand his condition has worsened. Celeste's blood turned cold. What did you do? Nothing yet. Victoria smiled, sharp and cruel. But the hospital called earlier. Thomas collapsed yesterday. They want to perform emergency surgery, but without payment cleared first, they are hesitant to proceed. Such a tragedy when medical care depends on financial capability. You witch, Celeste breathed, taking a step toward her. Draven's hand caught her shoulder, gently restraining. Aunt Victoria, this is low even for you. Victoria folded her hands primly. Miss Rivera, I am prepared to pay every cent of your brother's medical expenses. I will ensure he receives the finest care available. All you must do is convince my nephew to honor the arrangement I have made with the Thornwood family. A simple marriage contract. No love required, Draven said immediately. Victoria ignored him, her eyes locked on Celeste. Your pride or your brother's life? Choose quickly, dear. The hospital is waiting. The hidden library. Celeste barely slept that night. She paced her room, a beautiful prison with silk sheets and windows that overlooked a forest she could not escape into. Thomas was dying. Every hour she delayed was an hour closer to losing him. but every fiber of her being rebelled against giving Victoria what she wanted. Near midnight, a soft knock came at her door. She opened it to find Draven standing in the hallway, still dressed, his expression troubled. "Come with me," he said quietly. "There is something you need to see." She followed him through the silent mansion, down corridors she had not yet explored. They descended a spiral staircase that seemed to go on forever, the air growing cooler and smelling of old paper and dust. At the bottom, Draven pushed open a hidden door, revealing a library that stole her breath. The room was enormous, carved from the mountain itself. Shelves stretched from floor to ceiling, packed with books and scrolls and artifacts that glowed faintly in the darkness. Crystals hung from the ceiling, pulsing with soft light. In the center stood a table covered in open volumes, their pages filled with strange symbols and detailed illustrations. "This is the archive of my family's history," Draven explained, gesturing around them. "Every dragon bloodline kept records, but ours are the most complete. I have been searching for a way to break the curse since I was old enough to understand what it meant." Celeste approached the table, her artist's eye drawn to the beautiful illuminations. "Have you found anything?" "Fragments. Possibilities." He picked up one of the books, handling it with reverence. The curse was crafted with specific ingredients. Dragon blood willingly given. Heartbreak crystallized into physical form, and the binding words spoken under a blood moon. To undo it, we would need to reverse each element. "Dragon blood you have," Celeste said, thinking aloud. "But crystallized heartbreak? How do you even begin to find that?" "That is where it becomes complicated." Draven set the book down, his expression grim. "Heartbreak crystallizes only under extreme circumstances. When someone dies of a truly broken heart, when grief becomes so consuming that it takes physical form, the witch who cursed us used her own heartbreak. My ancestor betrayed her love, abandoned her when she became pregnant. She died in childbirth, but not before cursing our entire bloodline." Celeste felt a chill run through her. "So we need someone to die of heartbreak to undo a curse caused by heartbreak." "That makes no sense," Draven said slowly. "We can find another source. The curse feeds on isolation and loneliness. What if we could create something opposite? Not heartbreak, but heart healing. Love powerful enough to crystallize into magic. Is that possible? I do not know." He looked at her and she saw vulnerability in those golden eyes. "But you make me believe it might be." Before she could respond, footsteps echoed from the staircase. They both turned as Victoria descended, her face twisted with fury. "You brought her here," Victoria hissed. "To the one place I forbade you to bring anyone. This archive belongs to me, not you," Draven said coldly. "You have controlled enough of my life. I control everything because someone must." Victoria's voice rose. "Your father's weakness destroyed him. Your mother's foolish love killed her. I will not watch you throw away everything for some penniless girl who stumbled into our world." "She did not stumble," Draven growled. "You dragged her here. I can drag her out just as easily." Victoria pulled out her phone, her finger hovering over the screen. "One call to the hospital, and your brother's machines stop. One call, Miss Rivera." "How strong are your principles when weighed against his life?" Celeste's world tilted. She looked at Draven, saw the rage and helplessness warring in his expression, and felt something crack open inside her chest. She thought of Thomas, barely 19, his whole life ahead of him. She thought of her parents, already broken by medical bills and worry. She thought of Draven, trapped in this curse for a crime committed centuries before his birth. "Wait," she said, her voice shaking. "I will do it. I will convince him to accept your arrangement. Just save my brother first." "No," Draven said immediately, reaching for her. "Celeste, no." But Victoria smiled, triumphant. "A wise choice. I will make the call now. Your brother will receive surgery within the hour." She dialed, spoke briefly, then hung up. "Done. Now, convince him, or the funding stops." She swept from the library, leaving them in crushing silence. Draven's hands clenched into fists. "You should not have agreed." "I had no choice," Celeste whispered, tears burning her eyes. "He is my brother. And you are." He stopped, jaw working. "You deserve more than being sacrificed for someone else's schemes." She reached out, touching his arm. The scales beneath her fingers felt warm, alive. So do you. Which is why we are going to break this curse before Victoria can force that marriage. We find the way. We work day and night if we must. But I will not let her win. Dravan stared at her, something fierce and bright burning in his eyes. Then, slowly, carefully, he reached up and cupped her face in his hands. His touch was gentle, despite his strength, reverent, despite his pain. You are the first person who has ever fought for me, he said hoarsely. Not for my money, not for my name, but for me. Celeste's breath caught. Then let me keep fighting. He leaned down, his forehead touching hers. They stood like that in the ancient library, surrounded by the weight of history and the glow of magic. Two people bound by impossible circumstances, but refusing to surrender. We have 3 weeks until the full moon, Draven whispered. 3 weeks to find a solution before Victoria forces the marriage contract. If we can break the curse by then, I will be free to choose my own path. We both will. Celeste nodded, determination hardening in her chest. Then we work. No sleep, no distractions. We save ourselves, or we go down trying. His hand slipped from her face, but his gaze held hers with an intensity that made her soul ache. Together, together, she echoed. And in that moment, surrounded by the crystallized magic of centuries past, something began to shimmer between them. Not quite love, not yet, but the possibility of it. The seed of something, powerful enough to challenge a curse built on heartbreak. They just had to nurture it before Victoria crushed it. Completely. The blood moon rising. Days passed in a fever of research and desperation. Celeste and Draven barely slept, surviving on coffee and stubborn hope as they tore through the archives. They discovered fragments of counter-curses, partial rituals, and cryptic warnings written in languages that took hours to translate. Victoria watched them like a hawk circling prey, her cold smile never wavering. She had given them a deadline. The marriage contract would be signed on the night of the full moon, or Thomas's funding would disappear. But Celeste had learned something important during those sleepless nights. She had learned that Draven was more than his curse, more than his family's dark history. He was kind in ways that wealth could never teach. He remembered how she liked her coffee, always brought her food when she forgot to eat, and listened when she spoke about Thomas with a genuine care that made her chest ache. And she had learned something else, something terrifying and undeniable. She was falling in love with him. The realization came during their 17th night in the library. They were bent over an ancient scroll. Draven's shoulder pressed against hers as they worked to decipher a particularly difficult passage. His hand brushed her fingers, and electricity shot through her entire body. She looked up and found him staring at her with an expression so raw it stopped her breath. "We should rest," he said roughly, but neither of them moved. "We are running out of time," she whispered back. "I know." His hand turned, his fingers threading through hers. "Celeste, if we cannot break this curse, if Victoria forces me into that marriage, I want you to know that these weeks with you have been the only real moments of my life. You gave me something I thought impossible." "What?" "Hope." Her eyes burned with unshed tears. "Do not talk like we have already lost. I am trying to be realistic. Then be realistic about this." She turned fully toward him, her free hand lifting to touch his face. The scales along his jawline felt like warm silk under her fingertips. "I am in love with you, Draven Ashford. Curse or no curse, dragon or human, I am in love with you. And I believe love is stronger than any magic built on hate." His breath caught, his golden eyes widening. "You cannot mean that. I have never meant anything more in my life." Something broke in his expression. He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her as though she might disappear. His face buried in her hair, and she felt him trembling. "I love you too," he whispered against her ear. "God help me. I love you so much, it terrifies me." They held each other in the ancient library while magic hummed around them. And something extraordinary happened. The books on the table began to glow. Symbols lifted from the pages, floating in the air like golden fireflies. The crystals overhead pulsed brighter, resonating with a frequency that made their bones hum. Celeste pulled back, staring in wonder. What is happening? Draven's eyes widened with sudden understanding. The curse. It feeds on isolation and heartbreak. But this, what we feel, it is the opposite. It is connection and healing. Celeste, I think we just found the answer. He scrambled to gather the glowing pages, reading frantically. The ritual became clear. Dragon blood willingly given. Heartbreak transformed through love, and the binding words spoken under a blood moon. But there was a catch. The transformation required the dragon to shift in the presence of the one they loved, the very thing the curse forbade. It is a trap, Celeste said, horror dawning. If you transform near me while under the curse, it will kill me. But we cannot break the curse without you transforming near me.
Ow.
Draven's face went pale. There must be another way. There is not. She gripped his arms. We knew this would be dangerous. We knew breaking a curse this old would require sacrifice. Not your life, he said fiercely. Never your life. The final confrontation, the blood moon rose red and swollen over the mansion. Victoria had summoned the Thornwood family representative, a cold woman with calculating eyes who carried the marriage contract like a weapon. Celeste stood in the main hall, her heart pounding as she watched Victoria's victory smile widen. It is time, Draven, Victoria announced. Sign the contract, or Miss Rivera's brother loses everything. Draven stood at the top of the grand staircase, his jaw set. No, Victoria's smile faltered. Excuse me? I said no. He descended slowly, each step deliberate. I will not marry for your empire. I will not sacrifice my life to maintain your power. And I will not let you use Celeste or her brother as pawns anymore. Then you are a fool, Victoria hissed. The curse will kill you if you pursue this girl. You know what happens when our kind loves? I know what happened when we stopped believing love was worth the risk. Draven reached the bottom of the stairs, his eyes blazing gold. The witch cursed us because my ancestor chose power over love. You have spent your life making the same choice. But I refuse to continue that pattern. Turned to Celeste, extending his hand. Will you trust me? She did not hesitate. Always. Victoria lunged forward, but Draven was faster. He swept Celeste into his arms and ran, bursting through the mansion doors into the night. The blood moon hung overhead, enormous in crimson. They raced to the cliff edge where Celeste had first arrived. The forest spread below them like a dark ocean. The ritual requires me to transform, Draven said, setting her down gently. But the curse will try to kill you the moment I do, unless we can channel the magic differently, unless love really is strong enough to rewrite the spell. Celeste pulled the small knife from her pocket, the one they had prepared during their research. Dragon blood willingly given, she pressed it into his hand. He drew the blade across his palm without hesitation. Golden blood welled up, glowing in the moonlight. Celeste did the same, slicing her own palm. They pressed their hands together, their blood mingling. Heartbreak transformed through love, she whispered. The air around them began to shimmer. The curse's magic manifested like black smoke, coiling toward them with hungry intent. But where their blood met, light bloomed. Pure white light that pushed back against the darkness. Draven's body began to change. His eyes blazed brighter, scales rippling across his skin. His back arched as wings tore free, massive and midnight black. Horns curved from his head, and his body grew, transforming into his true form. A dragon, magnificent and terrible, standing on the cliff edge with the blood moon behind him. The curse screamed. Dark magic lashed out, trying to strike Celeste down. But Draven moved faster than thought. His wings swept forward, shielding her, and where the curse's magic met his protection. Something miraculous happened. The darkness shattered. 300 years of binding magic cracked like glass. The curse broke apart, dissolving into glittering fragments that scattered on the wind. Draven's dragon form shuddered, and slowly he shifted back to human. He collapsed to his knees, gasping. Celeste dropped beside him, her hands framing his face. Did it work? Are you free? He looked up at her, tears streaming down his face. I can feel it. The curse is gone. I can choose. I can love without fear. She kissed him then, pouring every ounce of her soul into it. He kissed her back, his arms wrapping around her as though she was the only solid thing in a shifting world. Behind them, Victoria emerged from the mansion, her face twisted with rage and disbelief. What have you done? Draven stood, pulling Celeste with him. I broke the curse you have used to control this family for decades. I am free now, and so is every generation that comes after me. You have destroyed everything your father built, Victoria spat. No. Draven's voice was steady, calm. I destroyed what you built. The manipulation, the fear, the isolation. My father's legacy was love, even if it killed him. And now I finally understand what he was trying to protect. He turned to Celeste, his hand finding hers. I choose her. I choose love. I choose freedom. Victoria stared at them, her power crumbling. Without the curse to wield as a weapon, she had nothing. The Thornwood representative left without a word. The mansion staff began to whisper. And for the first time in centuries, the Ashford family could breathe. A new beginning. 3 months later, Celeste stood in a small art gallery, watching people admire her paintings. The exhibition was called Breaking Curses, and every piece told a story of transformation. Thomas stood beside her, fully recovered, his college acceptance letter in his pocket. Their mother visited from across town. Tears of joy streaming down her face. Draven arrived just before the opening speech, dressed casually in jeans and a simple shirt. He had sold the mansion, donating most of his inheritance to charity. He kept enough to be comfortable to help Celeste's family, to start fresh without the weight of his family's darkness. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, pressing a kiss to her temple. You did it. Your dream came true. She leaned back against him, smiling. We did it. All of us. He turned her to face him, his golden eyes warm with love. Marry me, she blinked. What? Not because anyone is forcing us. Not because of curses or deals or desperation. Marry me because I love you, and I want to build a life with you. A real life with choices and freedom and all the messy, beautiful chaos that comes with it. Celeste's eyes filled with tears. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He kissed her as the gallery erupted in applause, her family cheering, strangers celebrating love in all its forms. When they finally pulled apart, Draven whispered against her lips. Thank you for seeing me as more than a curse. Thank you for seeing me as more than a deal, she whispered back. They had both been trapped by circumstances beyond their control, reduced to pawns in games they never chose to play, but they had fought their way free, not through power or money, but through the simple revolutionary act of choosing each other. And in the end, love had been the most powerful magic of all.